everyone, it's that time again. Time to go ahead and take a look at the next update that we have for Avacyn, the alpha build. We're all here, and this time we're adding in Urza's Legacy. And like I said last time, we are currently on the Urza's reboot build. You know, I've even got the reboot name up here, Avacyn's, Urza's reboot right here. You know, that's just kind of for if you're just now joining us or you missed last week or anything like that. Just a major overhaul of what the deck wanted to do, of what the deck was supposed to be, and stuff like that. A lot of great cards lost in the update, but I like the direction that it's continuing to go in, as I so often say. But let's go ahead and get into it. So we've got 9 cards here for the update, only 8 of which are actually brand new to the set. Kind of going back, I wanted to find a spot for Crystal Chimes last week, but I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be worth it or not. After last week, I did see a lot of the enchantments. Did want to get back a lot of the enchantments. It's 3-cost artifact, so it plays with Mishra's Workshop incredibly well. So I think it's going to be worth it to go ahead and run this, especially as we look at adding more enchantments. With this set and the last set of Urza, of the Urza block, Urza's Destiny. There we go, yeah. Saga, Legacy, Destiny. So, Crystal Chimes is a 3-mana artifact that says you can pay 3 and tap and sack it to get all the enchantments from your graveyard back to your hand. Really powerful card if you just have enchantments out the wazoo. I'm trying to move my hand over the screen to illustrate this point, but, camera's not pointed that way. It's over here, yonder. So, going to the newer cards, Forbidden Watchtower. It's a brand new land that we get. It's a man land. So man lands are actually really cool. I wasn't a big fan of the assembly worker, partly because it made colorless, partly because I just never really wanted to make a 2/2. So why would I want a Forbidden Watchtower? Because it's 2 mana and makes a 1/5. Well, part of that is because a 1/5 can actually block a lot more things than a 2/2 can. You put a 2/2 out there and you use it to block something, more often than not, it's going to end up dying. You just kind of not really strim on yourself, a little less efficient than that. But you end up just losing the guy because he's only a 2/2. The 1/5, I'm trying to imagine how this would turn into a soldier, but I can't actually imagine it. I guess like the spirit of it, and I don't know how. But anyway, a 1/5, it's not going to kill as many things, but it does mean that 3 mana can, stave off like a poking thing. And one of the things that was pointed out by one of the viewers was, hey, if you don't want to get poked by a bunch of like 2/2s and stuff like that, think about setting up like some minor defenses, some tripwires and stuff like that, metaphorically speaking, to just kind of keep them out. There's a reason why, fortresses and castles and any sort of defenses will set up barriers and pikes and all like that. You might think, oh, well, that's not going to really stop the really big, huge thing. It's not really supposed to stop the really big, huge threat. Those weren't going to stop it either if it's so big and huge. But it does keep the smaller things away. And when you're setting up a defense, that's really all you need. You just need a deterrent, which is part of the reason why we ran some of the things that we did, like some of the older walls. The Sunweb was one of them. We ran Wall of Swords because it was a 4-mana 3/5, and we figured it could go ahead and come down soon enough to go ahead and, just get in the way of some stuff. So, Forbidden Watchtower, hopefully it'll do that. I needed to, be careful with how many strict land upgrades, quote unquote, I make, considering how many lands considering how many times I've just taken out a straight plains for some of these. As you can see, we have plenty of basic lands. But yeah, I want to be careful with how many basic lands I end up cutting out, because we don't want land tax to become just so inefficient. I think probably around 17 is actually about right as far as basic lands. That gives land tax a good 5, potentially 6 uses. And at that point, if we've drawn like 17 cards off of land tax, we might be able to win the game. So going over to the 1-drop slots, speaking of land tax, we've got first Erase. Erase is an interesting one because we had all the enchantment removal we needed already. So this one actually needed to replace one if we want to run it. And what I ended up cutting was the clear, the enchantment removal that you can cycle it away. Just draw a new card. So in theory, cycling really good. If you don't need enchantment removal, you can get rid of it to just draw a new card that maybe you actually do need. I value the exile ability more, though. There are a lot of enchantments that just kind of they win the game if they stay on the table. So being 1 mana instant, you can't get any cheaper than that, realistically speaking. But it also exiles the enchantment. There are too many decks that play green or white, or hell, Bruna by herself should be a reason why you want to use something like this. And you just in the game of Commander, with everyone recycling and reusing resources as often as they do, hell, we're trying to abuse that too with stuff like Crystal Chimes. You need to be able to say, no, this is gone for good. Go away, we're done. And Erase does that in spades. It's one of the better enchantment removals. If you play an enchantment heavy meta, I highly recommend this card. Particularly since stuff like, Solitary Visionary is really cool, and Allay is reusable. But Erase just says, no, we're done here. Everyone has a mother. I love my mother. And having just recently found her again in this set, I think we're going to be quite happy. So Mother of Runes is a 1 mana, 1/1 human cleric, and she is a very powerful card. Powerful enough to be played in Death and Taxes and Legacy. Because she has tap, target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. But Rachel, you say, weren't we trying to get away from stuff that was more overly defensive? Yes. However, Mother of Runes is a 1 mana creature, which means in the future when we get stuff like the Ranger of Eos, she fits very well into that, 1 mana creature package. 2. Avacyn can't protect herself. We need ways to protect Avacyn. So you're right. It is actually another piece of defense that kind of keep around Avacyn, but it's not. It doesn't work just for Avacyn. The fact that she gives protection means that she can protect the damage. She's going to work kind of like a Kaldoran Royal Guards, or the Hoff, stuff like that. She's kind of like a really itty bitty tiny Avacyn in that sense, and that's already something that we were doing with the Flickering Ward and the Ward of Lights. So we have another tool in our repertoire to do that. She also has the ability to use that offensively to kind of help Avacyn get that evasion to get that push. We just have to be careful not to name white if Avacyn is enchanted with something. We have to be very careful about that. Next up, we have Grim Monolith, which is, for us, an upgrade for Basalt Monolith. It's something I wanted to try out. Basalt Monolith only costs 3 mana to untap. This one costs 4. But it's a 2 mana artifact that can tap to add 3. So unlike Basalt Monolith, where you're kind of ramping ahead for next turn, this one ramps you ahead for this turn by 1 mana. So if you really need to do that, you could. But it also means that this is coming down a lot earlier. It's not unthinkable. Sometimes we'll potentially get the nut draw where we can go like, Mana Crypt into, or Soul Rain into Grim Monolith. Grim Monolith will tap for 3. I don't know what we would actually put down, because this is almost all requires white. I put down like a Worn Power Stone or something like that. I don't know. But it does accelerate us quite a bit. 3 mana. Avacyn. This is the thing that keeps biting me about Avacyn, is the fact that she has a triple white cost and 2 generic mana. So stuff like Worn Power Stone actually ends up being really good to ramp into. You could go ahead and go land, Mana Crypt, go into the Worn Power Stone. As long as you can get another source of white somewhere, which is part of why I kind of wanted to put the Marble Diamond back in. Marble Diamond's still on the watch list. I kind of need to figure out what I would want to cut from here. Like, we could cut Mind Stone for Marble Diamond, but the draw is potentially too good. I say potentially. I'm starting to think that I just really want more white mana rocks that can make white. I want more mana rocks that can make white to help power Avacyn out sooner, if that's possible. So, like, if we were to go land, Soul Rain, Marble Diamond, then we could go land next turn. So land, Marble Diamond, Soul Rain, get Avacyn out. Yeah, I kind of want that now. You know what? Give me a sec. And that is why I love Diamond. I'm so glad I left this in the deck for, over something like Mind Stone and all that. That was in no way a last minute decision on my part. No, not at all. So, going into the other cards, we have Knighthood, which is a 3-mana enchantment that gives all your creatures first strike. This will help Avacyn win a lot of fights, because look at that body that Avacyn has, 5/4. Now, barring Titans, which she wasn't going to win against anyway, the first strike helps her win a lot of fights that she might not otherwise. It's weird that a lot of the things I've been poking her have been like 5 and 4, and us, we can't give Avacyn, we can't tell Avacyn to just go out there and block. She kind of has to sit back and guide the fight and everything like that. But no, with the ability to gain first strike, she becomes a much stronger defensive presence because she can actually take things down now. She had that lance. Why could she cost 5 mana? She could have gotten her first strike. Not only that, it makes the ground game better, gives the blockers more advantage, helps creatures survive combat a lot more too when they need to attack into something, because now your opponent has to commit more creatures to actually blocking a single creature to actually get rid of them if they don't have something that's bigger. And I want to see how the Knighthood affects the use of the elite archers, which we didn't get the chance to see last time. Because being able to go, okay, deal 3 damage to something, and now first strike will just kill whatever wasn't bumped down by that 3 damage. With the elite archers, Avacyn can take out something that has 8 toughness, and with first strike. So it's kind of a 3-card combo to really keep people away from attacking, because they're not just going to run stuff in if they can't get other things going. Next up, Serra Embrace. It's a 4-mana enchantment. I think this one actually came from an earlier set too. Pretty sure, yeah. So we actually get more like 7 new cards. But this is one I was thinking about putting in for a while now. Serra's Embrace is an enchantment that gives the enchanted creature +2/+2 flying and vigilance. The flying and the vigilance are incredibly redundant on Avacyn, since she already has both of those keywords. But the +2/+2 is relevant for keeping Avacyn within that 3-hit range for commander damage. And I can't keep harping this enough. That is really important for if we want to make the win condition Avacyn. Which, look at all the games that we have been able to win with this deck. It's always been get there with commander damage with Avacyn. Avacyn is literally the only viable win condition this deck has, as sad as that is to say. So with that being said, we're going to give Avacyn every opportunity she can to succeed. And that means including more things that will give her the extra 2 power that she needs. Now there was an artifact that would actually buff her up by an additional 2, but it wasn't one I actually wanted to use because it bumped up all the creatures on the field with that. Now, also going into that, the flying and the vigilance, we can put that on other things and kind of start making some, start helping some other guys out. Like, we can always just throw it on like a Monk Idealist or, God forbid, the Soltari Visionary, and just make some more beater type things. The Cloud Chaser Eagle already has flying, but that's whatever, I guess. The Keldon Royal Guard at least gets more toughness and can start poking some stuff too. I mean, I guess we can, and the Warrior Angel actually isn't a bad buy to use that on. Notice though that we did end up cutting the Seraph. Seraph was she's way too small to actually make good of her effect. Every time we saw her, I just wanted to pitch her for later, or I didn't really want to put her out there, or rather, I wanted to put her out there, but she wasn't going to do a whole lot. So Serra's Embrace here, and hopefully we continue getting more creatures that we want to actually augment and stuff like that. So speaking of getting new creatures, Radiant Archangel. So this is a legendary creature that I think actually fits in very well with what we're doing in this deck. She has Flying and Vigilance, and she's a 5-mana 3/3, so she's just a little bit smaller than Serra Angel. But unlike Serra Angel, she gets a continuously, she's going to get bigger, because she gets +1/+1 for each creature on the field with flying, and that includes the opponents. So if they start loading up on flyers, and she's going to get bigger. If we drop at least one more flyer, she's going to get bigger. With Avacyn now, she's just a Serra Angel, and we're already playing Serra Angel, so in some ways this is kind of like an upgrade. Okay, hopefully we can get more ways to. Hopefully we just kind of get more flyers and stuff like that, because that's kind of where the deck is going. Is we kind of want to keep playing, flying Angel Themes that'll help us get evasion. Avacyn keeps the ground forces on par. The Hoff, Royal Guards, they're proving their worth. They're fighting. They're battling. But we need some air superiority in order to actually get things done. Plus, she is a legendary creature, so she is actually viable with Sword of the Chosen for what it's worth. And she's not the only 5-drop angel that we get in the set. You might know of her more popular, cousin, Karmic Guide. And I did get the OGR because this is I prefer this one over the reprint art. Karmic Guide's a 5-mana 2/2 with flying and protection from black. She's an angel spirit. She wasn't an angel. She wasn't listed as an angel originally, but it looks like an angel. Let's update it to make it look like to be an angel, stuff like that. She has an echo cost of 5, and that was a mechanic that was introduced here, which means at the beginning of your upkeep, if she came into your play under the during your last turn, then you have to pay that cost in order to keep her out. So we're probably never going to pay the 5 and she's going to go away. But when she enters the battlefield, you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So she's a resurrect on legs or wings. I mean, she has very nice legs. Here's the thing. With Karmic Guide, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ways to bring creatures back from our graveyards. My next question is, if you've been paying attention to the game videos, what do we actually end up using these cards for? Give up? We've actually been using them to cheat the commander tax with the Avacyn. How many times have I actually, seen that Avacyn's going to die or something like that, and just gone, okay, we're going to go ahead and set it so that she goes to the graveyard when she dies. Plenty of times, because paying the 4 mana and a card from hand is better than paying like the 7-9 mana to bring her back out, because we just can't hit that mana. There are other things that we could get with the Breath of Life and all that, and eventually we're going to get better creature targets to bring Avacyn back. The problem just ends up being she's usually just the best thing we have, because she only has to deal 21 damage, and that's 19 points less of damage that I don't think our deck can get to right now. So, as a way to just try to cheat her back out, circumvent that command tax, I think it's actually fine. Karmic Guide is kind of in that same boat. She's obviously a great commander card. She still sees a lot of commander play, and she's actually quite affordable because she's been reprinted a few times too. The thing just becomes, for now, she's probably just going to be grabbing Avacyn back from the graveyard. I wanted to put the Angelic Renewal back into the deck to kind of be more insurance for Avacyn. Unfortunately, I just couldn't quite find that just yet. And spoiler alert, I've already taken a look at the next set, which would be Portal 3 Kingdoms. And there's another, Resurrect spell at 4. There's Resurrection, there's Breath of Life, and I'm pretty sure there's like a third one in here that we could potentially go in. I don't know that we actually need to commit another card slot to that. So, let's go ahead and double check, make sure we've got everything. Radiant, Karmic Guide. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think Karmic Guide and Radiant actually end up closing that out. Because over here you can see that we still have like our 6 drops, and you already saw that we have the Archangel right here. But she's still a Flying Vigilant 5/5 for 7, so she's just a bigger Sarah Angel. She can still hang around. But, looking at the deck overall, this actually feels a lot closer to something I would play in current times, where, everything feels a lot like it's pulling in the direction and it's being more proactive, as opposed to having like a million stall options with the Icy Manipulator and all that. So hopefully, we're going to continue seeing a little bit more of what we saw last week. I take that back. A little bit more of what I saw last week, because the one game where we were really going was the game that we ended up losing, sadly enough. Yeah. But looking at just, the other thing I want to point out is that we got Wrath of God and Winds of Wrath, Righteous Fury, Catastrophe. We've got 4 Wrath effects now, thanks to the Urza block. Let's see, Catastrophe's for sure here. Then, yeah. It feels good to actually have a nice little repertoire of catch-up cards. We had like the Wrath of God when we first started, and that was just so miserable to be so far behind and have no way of catching up until now. The Winds of Wrath helped that out. Then we got the Righteous Fury, and now Catastrophe and all that. So, it feels pretty good actually. So, let's see. Yep, that does it. We'll go ahead and go into the first game. Stay tuned.